Okay, so you start off with that first sentence defining your terms. Now, when we were looking earlier at the prompt online or in your template, the form that you fill out. I said that you need to pull phrases from here when answering the questions. That doesn't mean that you're going to pull, a phrase from here exactly each and every time, but you should pull out of the definition that you cited within the subsequent statements or claims that you make. But you also need to pull out of here as well. So, for example, you could say, well, when it came to using my psychological resources to working through the complex lessons on marking up an argument, I would say, so notice how I did that. So what you should do is, if you're going for that A-level response, is when you do embed phrases from here, is put it in quotation marks. That would be really cool. Now, look at all this other stuff. Someone who reflects this intellectual virtue. So reading through this is going to actually help you answer the questions that we already looked at. I'm not going to reread this, not all of it. And even reading this, like I said, you should read this 2 or 3 times to make sure you understand it. But you should quote from here, embed quotes into your sentences. Find a way to fit phrases in here into your sentences. Now, what some students do is they don't pull enough from a given bullet point, so it's not really clear that they're actually applying intellectual perseverance as defined or explained. So make sure you pull enough. I'm not saying you need to pull an entire thing, and that's not what I want. Please don't just give me a list of quotes alternating with sentences. Sometimes students do that. I noticed that a lot in some of the opinion comparisons. People were just giving me sets of quotes and maybe summarizing what was in the quotes instead of unpacking the quotes. But it came off as just a list of, this is similar because these quotes, this is similar. So, or you said and I said with no discussion. So you're embedding components of this. So acknowledges that some tasks require longer periods of deliberately sustained effort. So I could see you quoting from that. So you can say, well, when I was working on my second argument attempt, I went back to look at the feedback, which shows that and then you might have to tweak some of the wording in your phrase. That shows that I acknowledge that, and then you could do quotation marks, some blah, 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 to right here. And then later you might have something, and then you might say, this is in line with the definition because I showed quotation marks, immense concentration. Maybe at some point in working through a task or an assignment, you felt like giving up, but you didn't. So maybe you can quote some of this: does not give up or ignore task. This shows I reflected intellectual perseverance because, as noted in the lesson, somebody who reflects this intellectual virtue, quote, does not give up or ignore task perceived as time confusing, end quote. So you've got an idea, but each time you do that, put it in quotation marks. If you want to highlight it in yellow or bold it to make it stand out, I should see in your discussion in answering those questions, I should see that you've sprinkled embedded phrases from at least one time from the definition, not the whole definition, but enough of the definition to show you're using it in an accurate, clear, and precise way, and from here. Now, look, you're not going to discuss every single detail or every single aspect of every single assignment in table 1 or 2. You can start with some general claims, like going back to the prompt. So you might say, I sometimes reflected intellectual perseverance while clarifying my own arguments. And then you can say, I think I reflected it more on the first and the last, but not on the second attempt. And then you can give an example. So then you can focus in on something particular. The reason why I say I didn't reflect it the second time is because, and then maybe find some wording in here and attach it to what was actually true of you. Were you feeling lazy? Well, then maybe you want to quote from this part right here, and then maybe say something from this part, because I wasn't willing. You could say, I wasn't willing to really concentrate and really focus on the task. And then you could put, really concentrate, give immense concentration in quotation marks and intensely focus. You could just say that because you could put focus in quotation marks, but intensely, you change it so you wouldn't put quotation marks around that. So that's an idea. That's giving you a sense of things. But you can also talk about why you did reflect intellectual perseverance. You could say, conversely, I reflected intellectual perseverance mostly on the first and third attempts because when I was working on those attempts, I I did this. I was willing to work slowly, or I willing to slowly work through my way through that task. So you get an idea here. Now, if you feel like this is enough for you and you're ready to go, that's fine. But I am going to have yet another video that goes through a similar assignment, that where both of the examples are not so great. One is terrible, one is better. But I want you to show what would I'm not showing you an A-level answer, but I am going to show you answers that are lacking. You can learn a lot from bad or not so great responses. So if you want to look at those, I highly suggest you do. But a lot of you may not need to.